Hey students, welcome in this online session of 8th standard SS. Now, if you have thinking about of my previous chapter or the previous lecture in which I have taught you the relativity of the disaster towards the human habitants and also human beings. One thing we should understand always, like nowadays COVID-19's disaster is somehow taking place and it is spread all over the world. So I hope you need to get good examples that how to save yourself in the guidance of your parents, and I also hope that you can guide other people also by maintaining self-distancing, as well sanitizing yourself, your hands for 20 seconds minimum, and also eating and sleeping well. So disaster. This lesson is all depending on the disaster. So this is the part number 3 of the lecture, and the lesson is natural disaster. So the topics which I explained you in my previous chapter, in my previous lecture of this part number 2, because this is the part number 3, that volcanic eruption, earthquake and many more different kinds of things related to the disasters can be seen here in a way where we can say human beings can be, or human needs can be changing out here. As well we can say human beings should be removing themselves or shifting themselves from the places of disaster towards the place of safe or the safe environment, because safety comes first. So in this lecture today, like in the previous lecture, we studied about volcanic eruption. As I have said you, volcanoes are helpful also. Some factors of the volcanic eruption are beneficial, and apart from that, earthquake, how it is causing, what is flood, and also we can say that other disaster related to that in the previous lecture. Today we are having the topic of the different things related to cyclone, related to forest fire, landslides, flood, many more things. Okay, so I'll count out here. That is the famine, that is scanty of the rainfall. We'll study about this, that is scanty of the rainfall. It may cause to the no rainfall also. Sometime in the zone locative areas where the people experiencing less rainfall can be also decreasing, or we can say it can be also affecting towards their productivity of the farming products too here, agro-based products too here. So we can say that this lecture is all depending upon the famine, as well it is also depending upon cyclone. So air which blows at a very great speed is also can be said or referred as cyclone. That also you need to understand. These destructive air causes men and material, both very destructions. Property which are movable, non-movable, human beings, okay, living organisms, creatures, plant, trees, nature, everything is affected by these kinds of cyclonic waves or the cyclones also. So that is a cyclone. And furthermore we'll move to the forest fire, which is causing great amount of damage to the forest and its resources. So that is how I have mentioned you here. Now why the forest fire is catching? See my dear students, I'm just dictating you introductively. I'm trying to make you understand introduction about these topics, then we'll understand and refer these topics in the detail form. So forest fire is caused due to, we can say that like when the trees are collapsing on each other, they generate the friction. Furthermore, they also generate the heat. It can be leading to the forest fire. Apart from that, we'll talk about that. And the landslides. Sliding of the large rock, soil, etc. can be said as landslides. When the rocks or the, we can say that when the sliding of the rocks are sliding extra, that can be also leading with the landslides. So that can be affecting towards the mineral sources of the land, farming of the land, and also nearby locative areas where we can say that people are living. People are living in that areas can be also said as the somehow effective landslides areas. So let's start the first one. Now the first one is famine. What is famine or scanty of rainfall? See my dear students, first of all we need to understand that climate and difference of the weather. There is difference in weather and also there is difference in climate. Now weather can be changing whole of the day, or we can say throughout the day. Weather can be changing, okay, but climate needs 30 to 40 years or 25 to 30 years minimum to change of a zone. Means if zone A is having a hot climate area, or we can say arid area, semi-arid area, or it is having a torrid climate area, then to become cool climate area, it needs minimum 30 to 32 or 30 to 50, 40, 20 years to change its climate. Otherwise the climate will be remaining same. But the weather is changing, per day it is changing, or sometime you can say that per hour also it can be keep moving, keep changing. So these all are the general basic thought about the climate and weather. Now why I have said you about the scanty of rainfall. Dekho, it is depending upon the rain cycle. Now what is rain cycle? Let's understand. Evaporation of the sea's water, river, or whatever the gangs of waters are there, they all form evaporation, and that evaporation is stored inside the clouds. Okay, they form the clouds. Furthermore, we can say that the transpiration process in the plants also, as well the plants, when they release the water from the leaves, the spores are there. It is also creating some amount of atmospheric pressure, including the water cycle. And furthermore, you need to understand that famine means scanty of rainfall is also responsible when the clouds are actually passing from one zone to another and it is not giving the rain. There could be scanty of rainfall, which can be minimum for 1 year, no rain. Minimum, I'm talking about minimum. It can be going 2 years of the no rain, 3 years of the no rain. Then you will find the scanty of rainfall, and then you will find the famine. It means the scanty of rainfall. Now what is happening in this condition? You can see in your textbook, that is the 5.7 scene, and the page number is 26. You just see page number 26, 5.7. You will see the scenes during the times of famine. The land is actually having some kinds of hexagonal cracks on that, pentagonal cracks on that, and it is also somehow like very barren, so that nothing could be grown over that land. So if nothing could be grown over that land, it can be also causing furthermore towards the drought. No productivity, no water, no temperature control, no plantation, no vegetation. That's it. So we can say that famine is the general thing which is actually seen in the area where the area is receiving very less amount of the rainfall. That is the scanty of the rainfall, my dear students, that you need to understand. So this is also responsible for the death of the animal. Not only the animal, human beings, then natural vegetation is not there. Whole of the land is becoming barren. So this is experienced especially in the zone where either the temperature is very high, or we can say that, or the rain cycle is very disturbed. The climate of that area is disturbed. So it can be said as also a famine, or we can say like it's a drought famine. So moving further, now what is cyclone? Let's understand the basic thought about the cyclone. We studied about famine, now move to the cyclone. See, you and me, we all have somehow, some days, may have witnessed about the heavy wind pressure. Now when the wind is blowing in the normal pressure, we feel very blessed. We feel, wow, what a wind is that. But just to think, if this kinds of cyclone is actually blowing the wind in a high speed, where you can't make yourself stable on the ground without holding any kind of proper we can say object, you can be flying from one place to another. This is same happening with the plant, trees, animals, houses which are kacha houses, the houses which are made by soil or general we can say wooden structure and all. These kinds of cyclonic waves are affecting this thing, and in the affectation we can say it is disturbing every kind of thing which is related to the man and material also, movable and non-movable properties also. So that all the thing we need to understand, my dear, about the cyclone. Now if you go more further, cyclone can be somehow seen, it can be seen most of time at the coastal areas, the areas which are related to the coastline, and also the areas which is nearing towards the water reservoirs, or we can say water banks. So that's a general thing here. So if I go through the textbook, I can say that the simple meaning of the cyclone is air which blows from one place to another on a great speed, which I have already mentioned over the board. So therefore we can say that can be said as the cyclone. Also it can be called storm or whirlwind also, because it is making some sound, and most of the time it is also bringing rain with that, water drops with that. So it is more powerful in that. So therefore we can say that the coastal areas of India, if you talk about the coastal India, experience cyclone every year. And if I go more further in the detail of the lesson, then I would say that Indian zone every year is experiencing 5 to 6 cyclones per year. 5 to 6 cyclones. Can you imagine that? I have also discussed and declared this kinds of thing in my previous lecture, that how Indian zone is somehow affected every year from 5 to 6 kinds of cyclones. So therefore we can say that these kinds of cyclones are actually related with the air pressure, and also they are related with the wind blowing great speed, and therefore we can say that they can be destructive. Most of the time they can be destructive. So laterally we need to understand eastern coast especially witness this kinds of things every year. Eastern coast, why? Because it will be near towards that cyclonic zone, or we can say it is near towards the air pressure which is blowing at the high speed. So that is all about of the cyclone, and therefore we can say the adjacent regions also, the nearby region also feel the same effect of the cyclone when it is highest on the way path, when it is highest on the speed. Means the coastal area are experiencing that kind of thing, but nearby adjacent areas, to the coastal areas are also experiencing the effect of cyclone. So therefore we can say that cyclone is somehow like heavy wind, but one thing is very common and simple. It is not like flood, which is taking a long time to just go down or to just stop. It is actually like a short duration of the time when the cyclone can be observed, seen. Wind is blowing, everything has been like taken off, roof, then we can say houses, like these kinds of cyclone, and we can say that like roofs and houses, and we can say like a farm filled organic crops and many more things. It has taken, and now it will go. Means it is for a short time limitation. It is not for a longer time like the forest fire. If you talk about the forest fire can be for a longer time. Sometimes you can't believe it, but forest fire are in the areas of California, in the forest of Sydney, in the forest of Australia and all. If once the forest is creating its effect towards the fire, or we can say forest is actually engulfed in the fire, it will go last longing for the month also, for the week also. So compared to the cyclone, forest fire lasts long, and compared to the forest fire, cyclone is for a very short time, but in that short time it is destructive, heavily destructive it is. So that is all about the cyclone. Now my dear students, if you talk about as we have started the topic forest fire, let's talk about the forest fire. See, what you need to do, you need to just take your hand and you just rub your hand, okay? If you rub your hand like this, if you rub it very speedily, you will feel that your hands are creating some kinds of energy that is known as the heat energy. Now why it is created? There is a basic formula on that, or we can say that there is a concept on that of the friction. So whenever we can say that any two objects come closer and they create the friction furthermore changes into the heat, or it generates the heat. Same thing is happening when the two trees are falling on each other, or one heavy tree is falling on the other trees, okay? They are actually frictioning from each other. They are not having any lubrication, so they friction with each other, and in that friction they create the fire. Now how the fire is taking place into the larger phrase? How? there is a question, so I'll give you the answer also. The leaves which have been fallen down by the help of wind, or when they have dried up, or when the trees are changing their leaves into the fresh new leaves, the old leaves should be fallen down. Means we can say that the drying leaves downside, branches, stem, dead decaying things create fuel to the fire. So that fuel is actually taken very for a longer time in the forest due to air pressure, and air makes that fuel to go very wild enough with the fire, and thus fire is engulfing whole of the forest. So that is the forest fire. Now this is one reason for the forest fire. Second reason could be thunderstorm. It means whenever the clouds, let me define you my dear students, the rain clouds, one cloud is related with the black color and one is actually of the white color. So we need to understand when they collide together, or sometime when we can say that electrons are there in these clouds. What are there? The charge of electrons are there. Okay, these clouds are filled with the electrons. So when the electrons are highly adjusted in the amount of the clouds, they release some amount of electrons. Now when they release some amount of electrons, that electrons are coming downside in the form of the energy, that is a thunder energy. I have given you the example my dear students, that why that thunder is witnessed, or why the thunder is so dangerous. Like it is burning the houses, trees, and it is like a live fire, mixture of fire and electricity. Due to electron, when the clouds are releasing the electrons, somehow we can say that it is creating the energy. So if the energy is transported directly, transferred towards a tree, it is also trying to burn that tree. So that also creates the forest fire. This is the second one. Third can be by the human negligence also. You, me, anyone, if we are going inside the forest, sometimes they takes guns with them, matchstick with them, they do forest camping and all, and they don't douse the fire, they don't put water on the fire after they are doing the picnics and all, so that fire again catches in whole of the forest. So there are responsibility of the human beings also, that before going inside the forest we should keep all the burning materials, all the burnable, or we can say flammable material out of the premises of the forest, or we can say out of the forest department. So that is how we can understand forest fire can be saved out. Now moving to the landslides. But before moving to the landslides, I need to discuss more apart to the forest fire. So we need to understand my dear students that this kinds of forest fire has been witnessed in many of the forest of India also, as well as the forest of foreign countries also, like abroad countries too here. So the government should take some steps, some laws should be made to stop this kinds of illegal things which are affecting forest to the fire by the human beings. So human interference inside the forest should be also somehow prohibited for a legal checkups, and after that only they can be going inside, so that they cannot create this kinds of forest fire. Okay, so this is the very good example about related with the forest fire also my dear students. So moving to the landslides. Now sliding of the large rock, okay, or we can say soil etc., it can be said as the landslides also. These landslides can be of the heavy large rock mass to here, as well they can be also for the sliding of the land from one place to another due to underground flow of water, due to outer source of wave energy, or due to you can say cliff and mountain slipping, means falling from the cliff and mountain. Most of the soil is also eroded from one place to another. That is also like we can say sliding of the large rock soil. So here I would like to say that sliding of the rock or sliding of the large material of the rock material, soil etc., can be also we can say that seen from the cliff of the mountain, means from the edge of the mountain when the soil is falling. See, one thing we need to understand, if you need actually to try to save the landslides, we need to plant more trees. I know this formula will not work 100%, but at least it will work to hold down the soil, because roots of the plants are holding the soil. So furthermore they can stand very well. So therefore we can say that this is also one of the thing where this forest fire, the landslides and many more things can be witnessed naturally in the natural zone of the substance. So apart from that, we can say that, okay, for example, two factors causes landslides. Okay, how many factors? Two factors causes landslides. Excessive of the rainfall, first of all, or we can say an earthquake also. When there is an earthquake, earth can be separating from one place to another, or mountains can be making their portion to tilt apart. So that is also affecting the soil to tear from one place to another and go on the next place here. That is also the landslides. Okay, and second thing, when the heavy amount of water is coming there, heavy amount of flood is there, they also take this soil together with them. So that is also, they can sediment that kind of soil internal to the water. That's why soil formation is changing, and it is changing into the soil landslides also. So that is also the remaining factor related to the landslides. And furthermore, if you go, okay, for example, in the rainy season, if you talk about the rainy season, see my dear student, we all have seen the rainy seasons. So what is happening in that, let me discuss that also. In the rainy season, the railway transportation in the Konkan gets obstructed. Why? Due to landslides. Konkan railway is obstructed due to landslides. Tracks are not cleared, way paths are not cleared, and most of time, because it is actually affected due to heavy rain, its geographical condition is in the way such that it has to experience the flood every year. So that is how we can say that a landslide cannot be predicted, neither it can be controlled. But it can be somehow controlled on some level only due to human interference, where humans can think some better method so that landslides could be protected. But one thing is very common, we don't know which areas are there where the landslides can be seen. Therefore, we are also unable to protect all the areas of the landslides. This lecture is all about this exercise, and lecture is all about the disaster and natural disaster, and I made you to explain, understand all the basic things and needs also. So we will see furthermore in the other lecture, and we'll start a new fresh lesson in the next lecture. I hope this lesson was very interesting. And one more thing, my dear students, I would like to say to you that whenever you are stuck in any disaster, the first formula to save yourself is don't panic. First formula, don't panic. Ghabrana nahi hai. Because if you are panicking, you are not using your brain 100%, because you are having fear inside. So you need to be comfortable, cool, calm, have courage, himmat rakhiye, and try to find out a way. रोने से अच्छा है कोई रास्ता हम ढूंढे, है ना. So therefore we need to obtain the first rule, that we should not panic in the systematic thing related to the disaster. And if you don't know how to swim, how to go into fire, how to run from the mountain, then you don't go to save anyone, because in that case he or she will also die, as well you will also attend the same position. Therefore we can say that these kinds of things should be taken care with the forest fire, with the landslides, earthquake, eruption of the land, or we can say magma lava, and tsunami, then cyclone, scanty of rainfall, and many more things. So we'll meet in the next lesson with a fresh new lesson, and there we'll study some different concept related to that lesson. Till then you can keep revising natural disaster 8th standard part 3. This is the end part, and keep care, keep maintain distancing from the strangers. Jai Hind.